Oh my goodness. Hello. Hello, everyone. We're back. Yes, we're back yet for another episode. How are you? I hope you're doing great. I know I'm doing amazing, as you can tell. And I know you don't care about this and what I'm about to share, but I smell like cherries. You know, the lotion that I wore and the perfumes and every single thing. It smells like cherries. I don't know why it smells like that because it doesn't say on the packaging that it's supposed to smell like cherries, but it smells that way. And I know you don't care, but I just thought that I should share that, and that is that. I don't know. Again, I know you don't care, but I just thought that I should share that because why not? Anyways, hello everyone. It's Adrian, and you're welcome. Welcome back to the channel where I talk about my unfiltered thoughts and opinions that nobody asked for. If that sounds like something that you're into, like and subscribe, join the family. And without further ado, let's get right into today's episode. Now, if you're someone who's been on the channel for a while, you would remember that at the beginning of this year, I did an episode called "The Things That I No Longer Believe in." I did two parts. I did one at the beginning of this year, and then a few months later, I did a part two to the things that I no longer believe in. You should go and check that out if you have the time for that, because those episodes are pretty good. And a topic and something that I briefly touched on and that I really didn't dig deep into because I promised that I would make an entire episode on that. And today is the day. I talked about whether I think age comes with wisdom, or whether older people, or whether if someone is like older, then it like automatically means that they're like wiser and like smarter, and they just know more, and they're just like an overall wise person. And again, I didn't go deeper into that because I promised that I would make an entire episode on that. And today is the day, and that's what we're going to be talking about on today's episode, as you've seen from the title. And without wasting any time, let's get right into today's episode. Now, for the longest time, and as long as I can remember, growing up as a kid, I always used to be a kid who used to like admire older folks. And by older, I mean, yes, people who are like generally older than me, but it was like mostly people in their like 50s, 60s, and that kind of stuff. You know, people who are like way older, like my grandparents' age, and and that kind of stuff. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like in so many culture, older people are kind of like have always been idolized in a way. You know what I mean? It's like they are older. They have lived for longer than we have, and they're like they've always been like glorified in a way because again they're older, they have more experience than we do, and they've encountered so many things, and most of the things that we get to like and most of the things and problems that we get to like deal with now, they've experienced that before, and they've kind of like learned to navigate through that as the years have gone by. And for that reason, I've always like really admired older people and kind of like idolized them because again in my head I'm like they're older, they're if they're older, then it means that they're wiser and smarter, and they always know what they're talking about. And if I have a question, I can always go to them because chances are they have an answer to that because again they're older, they should know more than I do. And again, I've always idolized them and kind of like put them on a pedestal growing up because I was like, yeah, they're older, they know more. And for that reason, I always at all times used to hang out with folks that were older than me because again I just used to have so much admiration for them and respect for older people, which I think that's a good thing because I just always believed that they knew more than I did. And if I wanted to learn something good and wanted to be, I don't know, successful and just like conduct myself in the right way in today's world, I had to seek advice and guidance from them because again they're older and they know more than I do. It also goes back to this place of like, again, they're older, they got to see the moon and like experience the moon and see the moon and the stars, and also experience that warmth of the sun years before I was born, you know. And I think there is so much wisdom that comes with age, and that is something to admire, that is something to respect, and it's something that I've always respected and admired and idolized, like I've said. And as a kid growing up, I remember I always used to be the kind of kid who would like rather sit, like whenever my parents would like sit with my grandparents and like start to have all these conversations about like life in general and how things used to be back in the day, and how that's different from how things are in today's world, and how things are like changing over time. I used to be the kind of kid who would like rather sit there with my parents and grandparents rather than going out there and like play with my friends and kids my age, which that's normal to go out and like play with kids your age and all that kind of stuff. And I used to do that. But like the moment my parents would like sit down with my grandparents and start to like have all this all these conversations, I would always be like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna go out and play with my friends anymore. And my friends would be like, Adrian, come out, let's go play, let's go do this. And I'll always be like, you know what? No, not right now. Right now the older folks are sitting together, they're having conversations, and I need to sit down with them and just like listen, because they always used to like drop little nuggets here and there of like wisdom, and that's something that I always used to like find valuable. You know what I mean? It's like you need to hear that. You need to hear that and be there, because again, to me, older folks just like they were the people that I always like admired and looked up to. And the older I got, the older I got, and when I like started to, I guess, have my own experiences and like go out into the real world and get into this place where I was no longer sheltered. I was not only surrounded by the people that I always knew, and like my parents and grandparents and all these older folks, like again, my family, whether that was like my parents, grandparents, or like my older siblings or teachers and like neighbors. I remember where I used to live. There used to be this guy who was like way older than me. I was like a kid. I was like probably like 9, 8 years old, somewhere there. This guy was our neighbor. Okay, he was our neighbor. He used to live down the street from where we used to live back then, when I was like 8, 9, somewhere there. And this guy was crazy. He was crazy and weird, but like in a really cool way, because he used to like grow weed. He used to grow weed on his like compound at the back of like his house somewhere there. And we would always go there with my friends, and it was just like, all this like plants, and it was just like weed, just like pure weed and like tobacco and all this stuff. And he would like dry them. He would put them on like some kind of sheet and lay them in the sun and like dry those, so that he can like make joints and like roll them in like the paper thing. That's where I learned about that, but when I was younger because I used to see it from this guy. I've never smoked weed or cigarette or anything ever in my life, and I'm not planning on doing any of that. But I used to watch this guy do that, again, because I just could not stand always hanging out with my friends, which I liked, but also again, I always used to just find this weird attraction and this weird attraction with like hanging out with older people. I was obsessed. I was really obsessed. I don't know why, don't ask me why, but I really was obsessed. To like a lot of people in our neighborhood, or where I lived, most people didn't really like respect this guy for some reason. I don't know, because they just always thought that he was this dude who was like messed up, and all he did was just like smoke weed and like do all this stuff. And again, as a kid, you're always like taught to like stay away from such people. But with me, I don't know what it was about this grown man. I was just like, I don't know. I was curious. I was curious. I remember how we met. I was just like asking him about what that was and what that did for him, and he was just like, yeah, this is weed and this is not good for you, you should never do this, and all this kind of stuff. And it turned into this habit where I would always go to his place to just like, I don't know, see him and greet him. And something that I ended up finding was that even though this guy, a lot of people didn't like him in our neighborhood, and they always used to think he was like some kind of freak. But something that you need to understand is that he was just like really smart. He was like really brilliant. He was just like talk about stuff and like tell me things about his family life and his family problems. Again, I was like a little kid, and this dude was like in his mid to like late 20s, somewhere there. But I was a really curious kid, and I would always ask him questions about like where he was from and his family life and why he lived by himself and all these things. And he would just like always drop these little nuggets of wisdom, and I remember just like learning so much from him. And opposite of where he lived, there was also this other older woman in like her 80s. She lived by herself, and her grandson would always come to like visit her like a few times a week. And her grandson was, I remember he was my age, you know, somewhere there. And I don't know what it was about her. Again, I just always used to find myself to be like attracted to these people, to these folks that again I had no business talking to, because this older woman, this old lady, again I didn't know who she was, but I just found myself just like going to her place and helping her to like do chores. Again, I don't know what it was about it. I just used to always find myself get like attracted to these older people, and I would always just like enjoy their company. I don't know what it is with older people, but it's just so much fun. It's something that I always used to just like enjoy a lot. Again, I always used to have this admiration for older folks and used to like idolize them, and I just thought they were like the people. And if you needed to learn more about life in general, you needed to like hang out with those kinds of people and not people your age. I mean, it's good to like hang out with people your age, but I also thought that it was always really important to like have friends who were like way older than you know, people in like their 20s and like their 50s and like 80s, and you being a little kid. And that was like my philosophy at the time. And again, I used to learn a lot, and I always used to like really enjoy my time with these people, and I was just like always fun. Again, going back to that point, the older I got and the more I went into the real world, and I was in this place where I was no longer sheltered, and I got to like have my own experiences and like go out into the real world and meet new people who I was like not related to or had business hanging out with or being friends with. That's when I kind of like started to like see things for what they truly were, and kind of like the lens in which I perceived the older people in my life, and just like older people in general started to like be blurry in a way, and started to like form some cracks to in order it got to this point where I wasn't seeing older people or the people in my life with this like admiration and this like rose, I don't know, kind of like rose colored glasses, where I just like idolize them and just like saw them as these like wise people. But this time, because I was in the real world and I was like starting to have like my own experiences, things started to like be a little bit different, and the way that I started to like relate to these people and perceive them started to like change in a really real and realistic kind of way. You know, before it was just like me idolizing older people and thinking that they are wise and smart and intelligent and brilliant just because they were older. You know, I wasn't seeing their little these little cracks and these little mistakes that they would make to me, because it was like they can make mistakes, they're older people, they're wise, they're smart, they're intelligent. Every single thing that they say is a gem, is like, it's wisdom, it's pure wisdom. Every single thing that they say, they know what they're talking about, you know what I mean? They can't lie. Every single thing they say is right, is correct, because at the end of the day, every single thing that they're trying to do is to like look out for me, you know what I mean? So anytime someone in my life, whether that was like my parents or grandparents or a teacher, just like someone older than me, would tell me, do this or don't do this, and go this way, don't go towards that path, and go towards this path, I always used to like follow what they would say, because again, I used to like idolize them. But now that I was like in my teens and I was like going out into the real world and experiencing things for myself, I kind of like started to be like, okay, this is not right. Something is off. I was no longer idolizing these older people in my life and thinking that they were smart and wise simply because they were older. You know what I mean? Now I was seeing people for who they truly were. I was seeing them in a more realistic kind of way, with this like realistic kind of lens, and not this like over romanticized and idolized kind of way. And I was just like seeing them for who they truly were, whether this was like my parents, again, grandparents, and I don't know, older siblings and uncles, and extended family members who were older than me, and teachers, and just like all these neighbors and all these people that I would encounter in my life that I wasn't necessarily related to. I was now seeing them for who they truly were. Not just my parents or grandparents and all that. I was now seeing them for who they truly were. Them as people, you know what I mean? There was no romanticizing them anymore. And when that happened, I kind of like started to like see these cracks and imperfections and mistakes that they would make, the wrong things that they would say, the wrong paths that they would go towards, and how they would like sometimes not be the kindest or the wisest, and make like pretty dumb and like bad decisions that would go after to like affect other people out there, like in a really negative way. And now it's just like, oh, you're older, yes, but like you don't always know everything, do you? Though, you don't always know what you're talking about, you know what I mean? Like that way of me like putting them on a pedestal kind of like shattered and like crumbled down, and I was like seeing people for who they truly were. I wasn't seeing my parents just I wasn't seeing my parents for them just being my parents or grandparents and all these people that I like really respected. I was seeing them as individuals who had flaws and who could make mistakes and say something that was like wrong or hurtful or that wasn't really wise, and make mistakes. And that's when I started to be like, oh, you don't always know what you're talking about. Just because you're older, it doesn't mean that you're wise. Just because you're older, it doesn't mean that you're smarter. Just because you're older, it doesn't mean that you always know what you're talking about. Yes, you have more experience than I do because you've lived longer than I have because you're older than me, but that does not automatically mean that you're smarter or you are wiser. Therefore, me kind of like now starting to like develop a personality of my own and beliefs and values of my own after going out there and being like a young teen and having my own experiences and being like, you might be wrong with this thing, you don't know what you're talking about this thing, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, now I'm starting to see people for who they truly were, not because they were like older and now I think they're like the smartest person in the room and they know that and they know what they're talking about. No, but now I was like seeing them for who they were, people like me and everybody else. Yes, they're older than me, but again, at the end of the day, they were still people who could make mistakes, say something that was wrong, and do things that do things that weren't necessarily morally right. And all of that in that belief of me finally realizing like, oh, just because someone is older, it doesn't mean that they're wise and smart and intelligent, and them always know what they're talking about, kind of like started to crumble, and it kind of like got worse. And it started to be evident to me that that isn't always true. It was when I started to like have struggles of my own as a young man growing up. When you're a teen, everybody goes through stuff, and I kind of like started to have my own experiences, because before, any time I had an issue or a problem or something that I didn't understand, and I kind of like needed more answers and clarity, I would always go to like my parents, or like an older sibling, or my grandparents, or like a neighbor who was older, or a teacher. I'd be like, hey, this is what I'm going through, like, what do you think? You're older, you've been here, you've done this life thing more than I have. What do you think? What do you think I should do? What do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And they would always kind of like guide me and tell me, this is what I think, and this is what I think you should be doing, and this is what I think you should be going after. That was kind of like easier to do when I was younger, and they would always give advice that was like practical and real. But now that I was older and started to have my own experiences, anytime I would experience things and problems that were like unique to me, and that these older people in my life that I used to like look up to hadn't like experienced before, and I would like experience things. I'll be like, okay, I have older people in my life that I like admire, and that I've always gone to for advice and guidance. Let me go up to them and ask them, and I would like present the case to them and be like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And they would kind of like start to tell me, and like, oh, like give me advice that didn't make sense, and I would just sit back and think like, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never experienced this before, have you? Because before, I used to think that there is nothing that I can experience, or a problem that I can face, that someone in my life that's like older, whether that's like my parents or grandparents, or the older people in my life, generally speaking, hadn't experienced before. So that way it was easier for them to like advise me and like give me guidance. But now that I was older, I kind of like started to realize that, oh, yes, these people are older than me. They have more experience than I do doing this life thing, and they've experienced more than I have. But that doesn't always mean that they've experienced every single thing. And that started to be more evident when I started to like face my own sets of challenges. And I would go to these people and kind of like realize like, you don't know what you're talking about. You really don't know what you're talking about. Not because you're not wise or smart, but because you've never experienced this before. You've never experienced what I'm experiencing right now. These problems that I'm facing. Yes, you're older, you've had more experiences than I have, but you've never experienced these kind of problems that I'm dealing with now in today's world, have you? You know what I mean? I would kind of like realize, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. I would go to advice, and I would go to advice for them, and they'll kind of like tell me stuff, and I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And that kind of like used to like piss me off. It used to piss me off, because what do you mean? What do you mean? I always used to like come to you for guidance and advice because I think you're wise, because you're older and you know what you're talking about. And now I'm presenting you with this new set of challenges that I'm dealing with, and you don't know. You don't like know. What do you mean you don't know? You've always known what to tell me and where to like guide me, but now you don't know. So like, what am I gonna do? Like, if I'm younger and I'm experiencing these issues, and you don't know, you don't know because you've never experienced them. What am I gonna do with myself? Like, how am I gonna like approach this thing? And I would kind of like start to lose it, and it would always piss me off, because I'm like, now I'm on my own. Like, seriously, now I'm on my own, because even if I would go to these people, even when I would go to these people for advice, they would just tell me things that wouldn't make any sense, because they didn't know what they were talking about, because they've never faced the kinds of problems that I was now facing with in today's world. They didn't have that back then. And now I have to sit here with myself and kind of like figure this whole thing out by myself, you know what I mean? And with that way of me like idolizing older people, and always thinking that they always know what they're talking about, started to like fall apart. And I was like, just because they're older, it doesn't mean that they always know what they're talking about, or just because they're older, it doesn't mean that they're wise or smarter or know more than I do. Because now that I've gotten to like go out into the real world and like experience the world on my own, I started to realize that I was now starting to like have experiences that these older folks that I had in my life had never experienced before. And that was like a really weird, it was a really weird phase in my life, because I was like, oh, I really am on my own now. Like I have to like figure this thing out and like navigate the world now on my own, because even when I try to like go to these people for guidance, they will not know what to tell me, because it will just not apply, because they've never experienced what I'm dealing with right now. And now I kind of like started to realize, yeah, they don't always know what they're talking about. And something that I want to like remind you, I don't care how old you are. I don't know if you're like younger or you're like in your teens or 20s. I want you to know something, okay? Just because someone is older than you does not mean they're smarter than you. Just because someone is older than you does not mean that they're wiser than you are. I don't think that wisdom comes with age. I think wisdom comes with experiences, okay? You cannot come and try to like give me relationship advice and how to like have a better relationship with like, I don't know, a significant other and like my girlfriend and all that kind of stuff, when all you've had like divorce after divorce after divorce after divorce, and nothing has ever really worked out for you. You know, you can't come out here and like give me advice on how to be a better father when you don't even have a good relationship with your children. You know what I mean? Like, wisdom does not come with age. And I used to always think that wisdom came with age. And just because someone was older than me, it automatically meant that they knew more than I did. And that was a lie. That was a big, fat lie that I believed growing up. And now that I'm grown up and got to finally go out there and have my own experiences, I finally got to learn, like, no, like, just because somebody's older than you, it does not mean that they know more than you do. That wisdom about something, a particular topic or experience, it comes with it comes from experience. It comes from you experiencing things and you actually dealing with those things and overcoming those problems. That's where that wisdom and knowledge comes from, not age. Just because someone is older than me does not mean that they've experienced every single thing that I'm experiencing right now, or all the problems that I'm like dealing with right now. And to me, when I finally got to like finally got to experience this new stuff and new this sets of problems, and realize like these people in my life have never, these older folks in my life have never experienced this, so they can't give me advice, they can't give me practical advice that can actually help me grow and overcome these problems, because they've never experienced it. Again, that doesn't mean that they're like necessarily dumb or not wise, but they're just not educated when it comes to this topic. They don't have any wisdom to give me or any guidance to help me with when it comes to these new sets of problems, because they've never had to deal with that in the first place. You know what I mean? So I'm the one experiencing that. I'm the one experiencing these problems, and when I overcome, I will kind of like be wiser when it comes to these new sets of topics and experiences, because I'm the one who's experienced them. Even though I'm younger than they are, I'm still wiser than they are when it comes. I'm still wiser than they are and more educated when it comes to this particular experience and topic, because I'm the one who got to experience it, not them. They never got to like experience that. I got to experience that. You know what I mean? So just because you're younger, it does not mean that you have to like sit in a corner, sit in like a corner and kind of like shrink yourself. And if you're in a room with older people, you kind of like make yourself small because you're like, oh, I'm young, I don't know what I'm talking about. Stop it. You know what I mean? Just because someone is older than you are, it does not automatically mean that they know more than you do or they're wiser than you are. Again, I don't think age always comes with like wisdom. You know what I mean? I think that wisdom comes from you having experiences and you actually having to deal with real life problems and you overcoming that, then you will be wiser. You know what I mean? So stop with the whole shrinking yourself in a room and thinking that just because somebody's older than you and they said something, then it automatically means that they're right and you're wrong and you have to like follow every single thing that they have to say. This thing with me got even worse, like way worse, when an older person would say something and I would be like, no, I don't think that's true. That's not true because I know they're lying. And I would like always point it out because I was that kind of kid. I'll be like, you are not telling the truth. You're lying. That's not how it is. This is actually how it works. And they will always like try to like bring me down in a way because if you're younger and someone's older, they're like telling a story or talking about something and they're lying because they're lying and you know they're lying because they're lying because you know that particular topic or whatever thing they're talking about more than they do and you can tell that they're lying. And when you try to like point that out and like tell them actually you're lying, that's not the truth, this is how that particular thing works, they used to always kind of like be like, are you a kid, what do you know, I'm older, I know more than you do, and blah blah blah, and always kind of like try to like embarrass you and make you feel dumb and stupid. And when you're younger it works. At least it used to like work for me for a second because I used to be like, yeah, they're older so maybe they're right and I'm the one who's like in the wrong right here, but also I'm not dumb, you know what I mean, I'm not dumb, I'm not stupid. I would always go out there and fact check the things that they said, and I would always come back and be like, you remember that thing that you said, and you said that I was wrong. I was actually right. Yeah, I was right, and what you said was wrong. And yeah, I just wanted to make you to make sure that you know that I was right and you were wrong. You know what I mean? And that used to give me so much like, I don't know, confidence. I would kind of like make me feel a little powerful because I was now breaking from that mindset of always like listening to people and following things and agreeing to things that people who were older than me said just because, and that people who were older than me said just because they were older than me. And now it's kind of like learning to start to like, I was starting to learn to like think for myself and be like, you said this thing, but I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go out there and experience it for myself and learn on my own. You know what I mean? I would always like point that out if somebody says something and I'm like, actually that's a lie, that's not how it works. And they'll be like, no, you don't know anything, you're a kid, what do you know, I would always go back, fact check it, and come back and be like, actually you were lying. You know what I mean? You were lying. And I did that a lot, and I just got to this point where I was like, you know what, no, I don't always have to listen to people just because they're older than me. And simply because they're older than me doesn't always mean that they know what they're talking about. And I just started to learn to like have more trust in my own opinions and beliefs and values and my own judgment, where it didn't matter whether an older person agreed with me or not. I would always kind of be like, you know what, no, I guess I'm gonna go out there and learn for myself. Don't do this, do this, do that. No, I'm gonna go out and experience it for myself and learn on my own. If I make a mistake, I guess I'm gonna learn. That's the point of it. You're supposed to be going out there and making mistakes so that you can learn. You don't have to always like put yourself in this bubble. And I think this is a topic that I've talked about countless times in this on this channel, where you are supposed to get out of your bubble. If you're so scared of making mistakes because what if they're right and blah blah blah, stop it. Go out there, make mistakes, learn from them, and then make sure that you don't make those same mistakes. And man, when you're young and you're like a kid and you're still learning to try to like find yourself and find your own voice and find this confidence and learn to trust yourself more and trust your own intuition and instinct and kind of like be your own person and simply develop your own beliefs and values and break from the beliefs and values of your parents and your family and your friends and the people that you grew up with, and kind of like start to be your own person. and you're still not fully there, you're still like doubting yourself a lot, it can be quite easy for the adults or the older people in your life to come out here and start to like judge you and try to like discourage you or clip your wings and tell you like don't do this or don't do that if you have a dream that you want to go after, and you kind of like share it with them, and they're like for example, if you have an older person in your life that was like that always wanted to be a writer and they wanted to be an author, and they try to go towards that path and like try to pursue that goal, and that didn't work out for them, and then now you grow up and you want to be an author, and you tell them I want to be a writer and do this whole writing thing, and then they're like, oh, you can't do it because I tried to do it and I failed and nothing worked, so I don't think you should do it either, and because it's not gonna work out for me. Look, I tried to go after it, it didn't work, so it's not gonna work for you. You know what I mean? I think it's always important for you to develop this skill where you try to learn and figure out whether the advice that you're getting from the people in your life, older or not, you have to learn and realize and like find out whether that's coming from this place of genuine love and like concern and them caring about you and actually wanting the best for you, or whether it's coming from this place of fear and insecurity and just like bitterness and them being better about about something that didn't work out for them, and now they're like projecting that same failures and fear and I guess rejections onto you, thinking that if it didn't work out for them, it's not gonna work out for you. And if they don't like believe in themselves enough, then they will not believe in you because they will not think that you will be able to achieve that because they never got to achieve that dream. You know, it can be quite easy for you to like be discouraged and be like, oh, this person said it and they're older than me, then it means they're right, and I'm gonna stop going after this thing. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? We don't have this, we all don't have the same life, we don't have the same experiences, and we most definitely do not have the same luck. You know what I mean? If something didn't work out for somebody, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work out for you. You know what I mean? You have to sharpen this skill to know when to listen to people in your life and when not to listen to them. It's going to take time, and me, I think I'm in a good place with that, when I can like listen to somebody older where they're like giving me advice and be like, actually, you're just saying a bunch of BS, and I'm not gonna listen to that. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that to their face. I'm just gonna be like, thank you. I appreciate your advice and your concern. Then I will go out there and like do my own thing and make my own decisions because I know that they don't know what they're talking about. So it's a skill that you really need to sharpen. It's not gonna come easily. It's gonna take time, but you will get there. You will get there. You have to just learn to like trust yourself more and listen to yourself more and learn to like trust your own instinct and intuition. And I know this is something that I've talked about on this channel like countless times, but it's really important. You have to know when to listen to people and when not to listen to them, and kind of like go out there into the real world, do the things, go through the experiences and make the mistakes and learn for yourself. I say all of that to say, just because someone is older than you, it does not mean that they're wiser than you. It doesn't mean that they have more wisdom than you do, or they're like more smart than you are, or more brilliant than you are. No, I just don't think wisdom comes from living for a long time, and like it doesn't always come from age. You know, age doesn't always come with wisdom. I think wisdom comes from experiences, and you actually having experiences and overcoming stuff, and that's when you will get to learn how to overcome certain things and certain problems in life. So next time you are in a room with older folks, don't sit like this and like shrink yourself. Sit with your chin up. You know, you can contribute something. You know, you're not dumb, you're smart. Yes, you watching this right now, you are not dumb, you're smart. I don't care how old you are if you think you're younger. And I think I also admire and like appreciate the people in my life that were like way older than me. Also my parents, who always like reinforced that belief, like just because someone is older than you, it doesn't mean they're smarter than you. It doesn't mean they have more wisdom than you do. You know, they could be older and they could be dumb, you know, they could be stupid, and they could be like this person who doesn't know what they're doing and just like has no idea what they're doing with their lives, because at the end of the day, no one truly ever know what they're doing. We're all trying to do this life thing, trying to figure things out day by day. So don't walk around thinking that there is someone out there who knows more than you do and has this wisdom. Like, yes, but it doesn't always have to be like just because they're older then you automatically give them that respect of them like having this wisdom and them always being right. Like, no, you always have to listen to your own self and question things and figure out, like, is this right, is this wrong, you know what I mean? Don't let anybody make you feel small. It doesn't matter if they're older than you. Yes, respect them, don't talk back at them and be disrespectful, but you can be like, thank you for your advice, but I think I'm gonna go out and find out on my own, you know what I mean? So don't shrink yourself and don't let anybody make you feel small and stupid and dumb just because you're younger. When you're young and you don't know much, someone who's smart, an older person who's smarter and wise, will not make you feel small. They will not make you feel stupid. They will uplift you and actually try to educate you and walk through something and guide you. They will not look down on you. They will not do that. And I'm so grateful that I grew up having those people, including my parents and grandparents and other people who were older, who will always be like, oh, you're way older. You act, and your attitude is like you act older than your age, and they would always kind of like give me those compliments here and there and make me feel like I was somebody and not make me feel like I was stupid. And even when I had questions and didn't know something, they didn't make me feel dumb and stupid and make me feel small. They would always like try to like walk me through these things and guide me and educate me and be like, oh, this is not it, this isn't, you know what I mean? Just because you're younger, it doesn't mean that you're stupid. You're very smart, you're actually very brilliant, and I want you to know this. You're not dumb, you're smart, you're very brilliant, and that wisdom comes from you having all these experiences. Just because you haven't lived for that long doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have any wisdom, because you do. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, you know what I mean? Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And that's just something that I wanted to talk about and just wanted to hang out. And I know this episode is really long, but yeah, I'm just happy to be here and to like be spending this time with you guys. And again, I love you. I don't have anything to say. I hope you enjoyed today's hangout session and today's topic. Again, don't let anybody make you feel dumb. Don't let anybody make you feel stupid and small just because they're older than you. Don't let that happen. Anyways, I love you. Take care of yourself, and I guess I'll see you guys on the next one. Join the family if you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye. Subscribe, join the family. I'll see you on the next one. You're not dumb, you're smart. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Bye bye. I gotta go.